I'm joined now by Ifeoma Abidoye, who is fintech practitioner, Hazel and Orab Advisory, to review some of our top stories in more detail. Ifeoma, good morning to you. It's a great pleasure to have you here on Business Week with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Most welcome. Oh, of course, most welcome. Well, let's begin with Côte d'Ivoire, the world's leading cocoa producer, bracing for a reduced meat crop harvest this year owing to weather conditions. What should we know about this in terms of implications?
So one thing we should know is that Ivory Coast is the largest supplier of cocoa globally. Ivory Coast supplies about 40% of total cocoa supplies to the market. And so that means that if something impacts Ivory Coast, then global prices will be impacted. And we know that the law of demand and supply, if supply is restrained, prices are going to go up. And what this will translate to is that because cocoa is raw material for chocolate, we can expect that this will also find its way to trickle down into chocolate prices as well. In addition, we can also expect that, confectionaries like, Kraft and the rest that have chocolate businesses and also have other products will probably want to focus on, other product lines, sort of to augment the impact of what chocolate prices, could be impacted due to the impact that the cocoa price increase will have.
All right. I mean, if we look at this year's expected yield, that's at 400,000 tons,
exactly.
Comparatively against last year's, which is about 440. So that's quite a drop.
Yes, that's 10%.
Yes, it's significant when we look at the revenues, potential revenues, right? But then again, on the wider scale, if we look at the wider scale of things, impact of weather conditions, what could the implications of this have on, bean quality, pod visibility itself?
And so everyone knows that, weather is one of the key factors, sunshine, the key factors to making any plant or any crop, reach its best or optimal yield. And so when you have impact, you have weather conditions affecting it. This is another impact of climate change. And this is why, we talk about climate change being something to reckon with, something to look at. It would definitely impact yields. Last year, there was a swollen shoot disease that affected yields, and I think that what we're seeing here is also an offshoot of that because yields are trying to recover, but we haven't gotten to full optimal yields because of disease conditions, weather conditions, things that impact yield in general are things that we have to look out for in that agri space.
Right. So we expect or hope that this is going to be, we're going to see an improvement next year, hopefully, for Côte d'Ivoire, or could this be?
So I think it's too early to say, but obviously, because when things like this happen, government institutions begin to plan for the future. And so we expect that proactive steps are being taken to ensure that future supplies are not impacted, because this is a major source of revenue for the country as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's look next at the concern that Nigeria could potentially spend $110 billion in food imports in 2025 if it fails to adopt digital agriculture. I would like to approach this question from a better understanding of digital agriculture. Do you think there's enough sensitization around this even for the farmers?
No. Short answer, no. And as you said, if you do not digitize agriculture, there's a tendency that we're going to have food shortages and, we're going to import a lot. Now, why do we even have such a huge import bill for food? One of the reasons is that we have, the population growth is astronomical. Some people say it's exponential, some people say it's geometric. But one thing we know for sure is that the growth of the population continues to increase. And then we also need to match the food, the economy and the country's food output to the population. Right now, what we have is a lot of farmers. A lot of our food produce comes from the north. And we know that a lot of the farming is not mechanized. So that's one of the problems that we have as a country, where our technology hasn't gotten to exactly where it's needed. Another issue that we have with food is that most of the food, because of logistics, most of the food that is produced, about 40%, is wasted. there's food loss. So food is transported from the north to other parts of the country, and about 40% of it is wasted. So when we're looking at digitizing and employing technology, it's good to understand what the problem is and what the issues are. You also have issues like market access. So people who are not able to, so you have small scale farmers not able to go, they don't have a middleman to help to broker trade. Those are the things that are causing, that are sort of hindrances to the food sector. If we're able to fix that through technology, so if there's technology that can aggregate small scale food production to sell to final users, a middleman system can help. You also need technology in terms of like you have farm crowding that helps to pull funds together to help small scale farmers invest. It's a sort of a way where monies are gotten from investors to be put into the agricultural sector. That's what technology can do. Another thing technology can do is also help. Insurance is very, very critical. Farmers, they take a lot of risk. Farming is a very, very risky endeavor. And if you have an app that helps to, ensure that insurance gets to producers, no matter how small, they're covered, they'll be more encouraged to take risks, knowing that, okay, if I pay a certain percentage of my profit, if there's any problem, there's a disease outbreak, there's rainfall, there's flooding, I'll be able to get some returns, at least guaranteed, through insurance. So those are the ways we need to look at to ensure that food production is able to sustain the demands of the country, and we do not find ourselves importing as much, because when we limit or control our food intake as much as is possible, there's no way we're going to eliminate importing food altogether. But if we reduce what we're importing, we're going to end up spending less, because when you're importing, there's a exchange risk factor involved as well.
So quite a number of mitigation stopgaps there, which would be quite necessary and handy. I would like to ask you a bit more about this projected figure, but for the sake of time, let's move right along. Let's look at Tesla shares declining every week since Elon Musk's visit to Washington. What is this? What does this portend?
So Tesla is a name that, I find myself talking about Tesla almost every time I'm here. Tesla is a name that you can't talk about without talking about Elon Musk. Elon is,
he's the brand.
He's a brand. And what has happened now is, because of this alliance, this Musk-Trump alliance, most of the people who are Tesla users, EV users in the US, you find them to be mostly progressive people who are left-centrist or centrist, and typically those kind of people are Democrats who are in support of Kamala or Biden. And now what do you have? So people who are consumers of Tesla's products definitely are not going to be so happy that that Musk and Trump are now in this sort of alliance. So I think that that's one of the fallout of that, and because EV is something that is something that people deem as an important way to save or just manage the climate change that we are experiencing. People are still buying electric vehicles, but what we see is that there's a switch. People are also looking at other options. If, for example, they feel that Musk is now in alliance with Trump, there are other alternatives. So we see that there wasn't necessarily a fall in the sale of EV vehicles in total. It was just for Tesla. In January, there was a fall in the sales of EV vehicles. It fell by about 11%. Meanwhile, we had EV vehicles for VW rising about 50% compared to year-on-year figures last year. That's telling us that people are still buying the vehicles, but they're looking for other alternatives for various reasons. That's one of it. Some people have complained, they've had issues with their Tesla vehicles. There have been a few complaints we see online. So these are some of the reasons why you will see that people are moving from Tesla vehicles. But that being said, even though the stocks have dipped, what we know is that so these are the reasons the stocks have dipped. But what we know is that the market may be sentimental, but market recognizes value. And one thing we can't take away, regardless of the issues around, is that Tesla is cutting edge, innovative company, and so there's always value there. So people are still going to buy the stocks, and there's still going to be some stability in the long run. And mind you, even as prices are going down, you find that people will buy. There are people who always buy the dip to enjoy returns later. And we see that Trump is now fully supporting Elon. I think sometime last week, he also purchased a Tesla vehicle. So he's sending a strong signal. I'm fully behind you. And most of Trump's supporters are what some people can say are extremists. You never know. Prices can also go up again. Sales can also go up again because, they want to do what Trump is doing.
Right, absolutely.
So
not just entirely, there is also a lot of sentiment involved there. I mean, we saw the stock become largely volatile through the course of last year anyway, so there was a bit of a trajectory going on there. Ifeoma, we don't have any more time left, but I want to thank you so much for joining us, as always, on Business Weekend. We'll carry this conversation on, I hope, the next time we see you again.
Thank you so much for having me,
You're most welcome, most welcome.